When I was just 2 years into policing and I was still a fairly inexperienced beat cop, my partner and I were out on patrol one day when we got a call from dispatch. An arrest warrant had been issued for a guy who'd failed to keep up with child support payments, and a judge determined that he was hiding assets. We used to deal with stuff like that from time to time. Random dads trying to beat the system, sometimes addicts who barely even remember that they had kids. And neither group tended to be fans of the cops, so their greetings were usually pretty frosty. But after rolling up on our delinquent washing his car outside his apartment building, he was actually pretty chill at first. After we confirmed who he was, and he was perfectly polite and civil, the guy then says, "Ah, man, the lady at the courthouse said this might happen." Now my partner asked what he meant by that, and the guy said that he knew exactly why we were there. He admitted that he hadn't paid his child support on time, but had driven over to the county courthouse just 2 days prior to pay off the outstanding balance. Because it was past the deadline, the lady said an arrest warrant might already be in the process of being issued, but if that happened, he could ask the arresting officers to contact the courthouse and they'd confirm that it had been issued in error. Now, Joe Sixpack is probably going to read this and think, what the hell, criminals can just do that? Claim that there's a mistake and make the cops contact the damn judge? Well, yes and no. If we get a call about an escaped axe murderer, it's much more of a ask-no-questions type situation. But then when it comes to stuff like issues of custody or child support payments, things get way more complicated. Then if we arrest someone in error, even if all we can see in front of us is what appears to be a bona fide warrant, they can be entitled to a big chunk of change that comes right out of our budget. Seeing as we don't want to rack up some huge bills and compensation, we're advised to use our own judgment. And in that case, since nothing about the guy was screaming a-hole, my partner contacted our precinct to ask if someone could double-check the warrant. And after that came the waiting game. It's something you get accustomed to pretty quickly as a police officer, all that hurry up and wait stuff. We wait for backup, we wait for SWAT, we wait for clearance, or we wait for negotiators, and sometimes we wait for warrants to be confirmed. And to kill time, we often explain the situation as best as we can to whoever's name is on the warrant, or if we're in our squad car, we'll just shoot the breeze on this or that till word comes back. But then sometimes, making small talk with a perp is a real leveler in terms of showing him you're just a regular person doing a kind of irregular kind of job. And that can sometimes be the difference between a good day and a really bad one. And so, because we needed to detain the guy in the event that his warrant was good, we walked him over to our squad car and sat him in the back while we stood near the open door. And since he was being so friendly, we didn't cuff him. We didn't search him either. We didn't think we needed to. My partner asked him if he watched the Falcons, and when the guy said yeah, they started discussing if Mike Smith was the right coach for the job since they'd just been demolished 24-2 by the Giants, etc., and the guy in the back of the squad was saying something like, hell no. But then my partner started saying how Smith was a rebuild coach and that we were really just trying to improve and not to win. By the end of his little speech, the guy in the back then says, "Yeah, I feel you." And my partner was kind of proven right too, because 2012 saw the Falcons edge a 30-28 victory in the divisional playoffs. They ended up losing the NFC Championship to the Niners, but that's whatever, I guess. Because my partner wouldn't live to see it. After a couple of more minutes of talking amongst ourselves, my partner's radio starts buzzing with news from dispatch. This is another thing that really sets us apart from civilians, well, most civilians anyway, and that only those with an ear for it can really decipher what's being said over police radios. This meant that I heard it loud and clear when dispatch confirmed the warrant was good and we were to bring this guy in. But our perp didn't understand a word, so when my partner tells him to step out of the car so we can put the cuffs on him, his face just sort of drops. He goes from the nicest, friendliest, most reasonable guy you could ever hope to meet, and he turns, like a werewolf, right in front of my eyes. His smile disappeared, his brow dropped, and as my partner reached into the squad car to offer him a hand, our perp reached into his pants. By the time my partner saw the gun, it was too late. He knew what was happening and what a terrible mistake we'd both made, but by the time his hand touched his holster, almost a dozen shots had been fired at him point blank. The coroner's report said it only took minutes for him to bleed to death from massive internal injuries, but having seen it myself, I think he was dead before he even hit the floor. People who are shot that many times, they gurgle or groan while they writhe around for a while, and then suddenly they're just gone. But my partner just laid there like he was sleeping till they carried him off to the cooling board. The guy in the back, the one who pulled the gun and shot him, his departure from this mortal plane wasn't nearly so peaceful. I emptied a whole mag through the back window. Then after I reloaded and he made the mistake of trying to get out of the car, I emptied a whole nother mag through the broken glass until we finally stopped moving. I heard him gurgling, I heard him groaning, and all I could think in the moment was, what's waiting for you downstairs is going to make those bullet holes feel like tickles from a feather. And I'm glad he was suffering. I wanted him to. And aside from not searching the guy or putting him in cuffs, my only regret is not making him suffer even more before he finally stopped moving and stopped making noises. The funeral was rough. Almost the whole department turned out to see him off, and my partner's whole family were just so darned understanding. We all felt this huge amount of guilt for letting something like that creep up on us because it wasn't us that paid, it was him. But during the eulogy, my partner's brother said that he was proud, because although we lost him, my partner went out dragging a little piece of evil with him too. And that's why he served, so he died doing what he loved, trying to keep ordinary people safe. In my entire career as a police officer, one of the most haunting things I ever witnessed started as a very basic welfare check. I was out in my squad car when a call came over the radio saying some sweet old lady hadn't been seen for a while, and so I volunteered myself to check out the address in question and then drove over and parked outside. No one came to the door when I rang the doorbell, and then, since there was a heck of a lot of mail piling up inside the contained porch area, I knew that I'd have to force entry to ensure that this woman was okay. Now, I wasn't expecting anything as such because as a cop you learn to expect the unexpected. I'd performed an almost identical welfare check on a lady whose hearing aid had run out of battery. I almost scared her half to death when I just sort of appeared there in her kitchen all of a sudden. But bottom line, she was okay, and the lady on this occasion, however, was not. I managed to break the lock on the double doors around the back of her house, and then I was in. And right away I was greeted by the smell of death. It wasn't strong, which suggested the lady that I was looking for hadn't been dead for very long, but when I found her, her general condition confirmed this. But what I also noticed was that her arms and hands appeared to be in a much more enhanced state of decomposition. There were large patches of skin and flesh missing from them, mostly in circular patterns, while the skin on her face and legs were dry and waxy but mostly undegraded. I looked around the room for any clue as to why this was the case. For example, if there were any hazardous chemicals or biohazards that might account for the strange rate of decomposition, but there was nothing. And aside from the corpse lying in the middle of it, the room looked totally unremarkable. I radioed in the body, then got an almost instant response to say support was inbound. But literally seconds after I acknowledged, I heard this soft mewling sound coming from what sounded like the second floor. I turned in time to see a black cat walking into the room. It stopped when it saw me and sat still looking at me for a second. My heart sank when I saw it, and I remember saying something like, "Hey buddy, I'm real sorry about your mom." And it was a dumb thing to say, I know, but it was almost like more for me than the cat. I still hadn't put two and two together, and yet I didn't want to scare the cat at all in case it tried attacking me, as cats are worse than dogs for that sometimes for sure, and so I gave it a wide berth as I made my way back towards the back doors. But when I got there, and I looked back at the cat one last time, I saw it walking over towards the corpse of its owner, and then everything finally made sense. I remember just thinking, or sort of staring for a couple of seconds and thinking, oh God, please no. Please don't let it be the cat. But it was. And as to dispel any reasonable doubt that I had left, the cat stopped, sat itself down, and then just started chewing and tearing at the skin of its owner's arm. I didn't entirely see it. The cat had its back to me, but I heard it, and that was enough to send me out the back doors and back towards my squad car. I'd heard a lot of rumors about pets eating their owners following sudden and unexpected deaths, but I'd never seen it for myself until then. I only ever saw it the one time, too, but it's something that I'll never, ever forget.